Hello and welcome. My name is Lynn Allen Sion. I'm the president of the Orange County Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to today's breakfast, to our August monthly breakfast. We're very excited today to have John Lentini from Crestcom to discuss with us the importance of resiliency in leadership. We all know that we are in the middle of a pandemic, a global pandemic. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going on. So we're going to learn about how to embed resiliency in your leadership strategy and how to move forward, especially when there's so many unknowns that are up in the air. But as always, before we start our breakfast, we always say the Pledge of Allegiance. So I would ask that you would join me in this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so much. It's very important for us to be unified. And one of the blessings of being in the United States is that we are all allowed to have a difference of opinion, and that is a gift. That is a gift. So one of the things that we always do as we have our breakfasts or any of our events is to mention our corporate partners. And I do want you all to know that without the support of our corporate partners, particularly now, we would not have been able to do what has happened since March. If you have read any of our emails, you would know that since March, we have assisted hundreds of businesses. Our membership directory in the time from March 16th till about July 14th logged over 395,000 referrals that were made. Businesses were mapped, Facebook links were clicked, websites were clicked. There's power in being a member of the Orange County Chamber. And without the support of the corporate partners, we would not have been able to maintain the level of assistance that we did. So I want to give them a shout out and I want to thank them. I want to thank our platinum partners first, which are the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Cornerstone Family Healthcare, Legoland New York Resort, which is opening next year, 2021, very exciting, Woodbury Common Premium Outlets, Drake Globe PLLC. Those are our platinum partners. Our gold partners are Access Supports for Living, and you can get hand sanitizer through Access Supports through their business solutions. So if you need hand sanitizer, please don't hesitate to check them out. Central Hudson Gas and Electric, Community Products, DocuWare, Empire State Bank, Hudson Valley Credit Union, Montefiore St. Luke's Cornwall Hospital, Orange and Rockland Utilities, Orange Bank and Trust Company, Garnet Health Medical Center, which is the new name for OMRC, Toro College of Osteopathic Medicine, and Ulster Savings Bank. Our President's Circle is Acquisitions Marketing, Benora Hospitality Group, Interact Marketing, SDA Events, and our newest President's Circle is Verizon Wireless of our zone of Orange County. Our media partners are Bold Gold Media, Fox Radio Group, Hudson Valley Press, Hudson Valley Weather, Lamar Advertising, Mid-Hudson News Network, and the Times Herald Record. And again, without this support, we would not have been able to assist the business community of Orange County and also parts of Rockland, Dutchess, and Ulster County and Sullivan. So thank you so much for your support of the Orange County Chamber of Commerce and for the business community of Orange County. We appreciate it so much. We appreciate it so much. And today we have some sponsors for our breakfast. Our first sponsor is Scott Perry from Atlas Security Services. So we're going to turn this over to Scott, who many of you know, who has a recording for us.
We've been providing for several decades. Recently, due to the new challenges we face, we're providing temperature screening, wellness questioning, the maintaining of social distancing guidelines. So if you or any of your clients have any questions regarding security services, please reach out. Thank you for your time and have a good day. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott Perry, and along with my business partner, Matt, I own Atlas Security Services. We're a security guard provider. We provide services throughout the Hudson Valley, as well as in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Matt's a retired trooper, and I'm a retired
And our
NYPD sergeant.
next sponsor
We've been in business since
is
1992, and we currently have approximately 200 guards on staff. We provide services to all industries: municipalities, educational, healthcare, retail, entertainment, etc. We have a list of clients that reads like a who's who of Orange County and the Hudson Valley, and we're very proud of that fact. We provide the same services that the multinational companies provide. However, we maintain a hands-on approach where myself or my business partner are available 24/7. In addition to the security services such as armed and unarmed guards that we've been providing for several decades, recently, due to the new challenges we face, we're providing temperature screening, wellness questioning, the maintaining of social distancing guidelines. So if you or any of your clients have any
Back to you, Lynn.
And our next sponsor is Dr. Eric Munzer from ENT Allergy. We're thankful so much again for ENT's allergy support of the Orange County Chamber and our breakfasts.
Eric is in here, Lynn.
Okay, and now we're going to go over to Billy Iverson from Acquisitions Marketing. We are very, very thankful for their support as always.
Back to you.
So thank you to our sponsors for our breakfast this morning. We are, as always, so appreciative of what you do for us and for the business community of Orange County. So before I turn it over to Heather Bell, who is our Director of Membership, I just want to give you a couple of announcements to let you know what's going on here at the Chamber. First, I want to give a shout out. It is National Healthcare Center Week, so we want to give a shout out to our Platinum partner, Cornerstone Family Health Center, for everything that they do. And just as a reminder, even though it looks like, even though we are still in the middle of a pandemic, please do not neglect your care. Please make sure that your children are vaccinated. Please make sure that you take care of yourself. Please do not neglect that. So we want to thank Cornerstone for everything that they do. Also want to remind everybody that we do have our golf outing. We are forging ahead. It looks like we'll be able to do this. This will help us to continue to do everything that we do for the business community. And that is for the 22nd Orange Open. And that will be held at Otter Kill Golf Course Country Club on September 21st. Sponsorships and carts are still available and open. Please contact us at the Chamber. You can call us at 294-1700, or you can go on our website to get the information for sponsorships and for foursomes. The sponsors for that are First Light, Orange Bank and Trust, Spectrum Reach, and DocuWare. So we want to thank them for their support of our golf outing. My last announcement is that next month, our September breakfast, we are hoping, fingers crossed, to be able to have a live breakfast at Winding Hills Golf Club. So County Executive Steve Newhouse will be our speaker, and keep tuned for that information. That will be coming out shortly with directions and how we're going to proceed with that. But right now, I'm going to turn this over to our Director of Membership, Heather Bell.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everybody. I am excited to announce the following new members to the Chamber of Commerce. We would like to welcome Simply Carter Corporation, Worldwide Merchant Services, who came to us as a member loyalty referral by You're the Boss Catering and Events, SUNY New Paltz, Solutionize, Yesterday's Fine Food and Irish Pub, Premier Medical Group, and Sunset Bay Tanning. Welcome to the Orange County Chamber of Commerce. I'd also like to recognize the following chamber anniversary milestones. For 10 years, we celebrate Pets Alive and Moondog Pictures, and for 5 years, we celebrate Lakeland Bank. And I'd like to say thank you to all of these businesses and all of our members for allowing us to support them and help them to grow, as well as to support the Chamber's mission. We are so excited to continue to do this. And to be sure, to reference Wednesday's email, because all of our valued members who have renewed their membership this month as well are going to be highlighted there this coming Wednesday. Members supporting members is the platform of that email. So if you have something that you would like to share, send it to me, Heather B. at orangeny.com. Finally, just a few announcements of events that are going on. We had our first virtual speed networking sponsored by our corporate partner, Woodbury Premium Outlets, and it was a great success. So we're doing it again. We will be doing it on August 20th at 4 p.m. You need to register on our website. This is open to non-members as well, so for a small fee of $10, but great impact. So go ahead and register in advance. Again, August 20th at 4 p.m. Meet the Member program is on fire. And if you would love to, learn about your other members, the past episodes are available both on Facebook and on our YouTube channel. You should subscribe to our YouTube channel. All of this is, all of the ones that are coming up are on our website and social media. All of our events are on our website and social media. We had a great ribbon cutting at the Heritage Credit Union. They've changed their name. They used to be Hudson Heritage. And then yesterday we celebrated Fusion CBD, their new marketplace out on Route 94. So I would also like to thank the ambassadors of the Chamber. They're kind of the silent heroes, and they help me stay in touch with members. So if you're a member, you've probably gotten a phone call from them, and they just kind of check in and make sure that you're maximizing your membership as well. So please contact me to discuss ways that we can work together to maximize your membership. If you're not a member and you'd like to discuss the benefits and learn more about what we can be doing together to grow the county and beyond, I'd be very happy to talk to you. I'm Heather B. at orangeny.com. Thank you, and back to you, Lynn.
Thank you, Heather. And as Heather said, membership in the Orange County Chamber is really, really important. We are thrilled that you are our members. It gives us voice so that when we advocate, which we have been doing very heavily over the past years, many years, but over the past 5 months, any of our elected officials will tell you, we have been advocating for our businesses. And when we're able to say that, we are the Orange County Chamber and we represent almost 1,000 members and 46,000 employees, that is huge. That is what our base is. You provide a huge voice for us to be able to advocate for the business community. And we are so grateful for your membership with us and your support of us and of the entire business community here in Orange County. It's very important, probably now more than ever, really, because as we go forward, we do not know what we're heading into. And that is the topic for today's breakfast. So let me introduce to you John Lentini, who is the president of Bold Training Corp. And he works with Crestcom. And what John does is a worldwide leadership development company with a very unique process for developing management and leadership skills to sharpen managers' focus on the bottom line and enhancing the organization's ability to compete in their market. John provides a number of workshops for people skills that can positively impact morale, productivity, performance, and profits. These skills need to be developed now. It is vitally important for you as business owners as leaders of the business community, as leaders in your community, whether in business or not-for-profit. And remember, the Orange County Chamber, we represent the not-for-profits and the business community, and we work with government. It's important for anybody, regardless of where you are, to develop these skills. So John, I am thrilled to pieces. I'm just so thrilled to be able to welcome you today. I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing your expertise. And I'm going to turn this over to you now.
All right, well, thank you very much, Lynn. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes.
Everyone can see my screen? Well, good morning, Orange County. How many people miss hearing that live? I know I do. Thank you for the very kind introduction, Lynn. As Lynn mentioned, I'm in the leadership development space. But prior to getting involved in doing what I do today, I spent well over 2 decades in the investment banking world in various leadership positions. And, very early in my career, I had the good fortune of having worked for some very good leaders who had a very strong and positive developmental impact on me early in my career. Along the way, of course, I had the opportunity to work for some not so great leaders whose greatest teachings to me may have been, stronger lessons in what not to do or perhaps how not to behave. And never underestimate the power of adversity. It is one of life's greatest teachers, for sure. Now, in under a month now, we're going to be reflecting on the 19-year anniversary of September 11th, 2001. Now, perhaps most poignantly for me, I learned the truly tragic consequences of selfless leadership on that day. At the time, I was still working on the 80th floor of 2 World Trade Center. The firm that I was with, the Japanese bank, had been through the bombing in '93. And as a result, they took the very real threats to human health and safety very seriously. They commissioned grab-and-go safety bags for every employee. We had them in our desks containing items like face masks, flashlights, emergency drinking water, whistles. These things may seem commonplace today, but I assure you back in the late 90s and early 2000s, this seemed a rather extreme measure. But seeing these things in our desk drawer every day was a constant reminder that in the banking world, chasing almighty dollars and cents, that human capital was truly our most valuable asset. And fire drills were never taken lightly. So on September 11th, when the first plane hit Tower 1, my senior management team and the 80th floor of Tower 2 immediately mobilized and forced a very quick evacuation of our floor. Unfortunately, less than 20 minutes later, when the second plane hit going through floors 75 through 85, those remaining didn't stand a chance. So all of my senior leadership team was killed that day. And we lost a total of 24 employees, which was obviously quite tragic and a very difficult period. But, the truth of the matter is we would have certainly lost hundreds had it not been for the heroic efforts of this team and their preparedness for having been through the first bombing in '93. So I'd just like to take a brief moment of silence, if everyone could now, to remember everyone who was lost that day before we move forward. We can do this virtually, please. So that was then. Where are we today? September 11th, 2001, I think we're feeling similar anxieties to what we feel today. The situations are vastly different in a number of ways, of course, but the anxieties we feel and the uncertainty about what's next and will we ever have a new normal, we didn't know what would be next. And obviously the world has changed many ways. We can't carry liquids on planes. There's all sorts of travel restrictions and security measures that have been taken across the country and the globe. But the reality is we did return to some semblance of normalcy. Our economy, returned to boom. And, many people didn't predict that, as much as it seems like, oh, yeah, that was obvious. And that's where we are today. The situation is different. In some ways it's worse, in some ways it may not be. But, we have to believe that there is a new normal coming and that we will come through this better and stronger. So the question is, how do leaders adapt and recover in the face of adversity and disruption? Now, in the story I just told you, preparedness was key, right? Having been through the first attack in '93 forced, management to mobilize and do things that changed the culture of the organization. Now, it's not so much whether or not anyone needed those grab-and-go bags that day, whether they actually used the emergency water on the way out of the towers, but psychologically, everybody understood the real threat they faced on a daily basis, opening their drawers and seeing that bag, the severity with which we took fire drills. I'm quite certain had we not been through the first attack in '93, we would not have been able to save as many lives as we had, just because people took things very seriously. And from a standpoint of health and safety, we had a resilient plan in place for sure. Now, dire circumstances aside, forget catastrophic events like 9/11 or the current global pandemic, we all have our days like this, right? Where we feel like throwing our hands up and giving up. Little things tend to get us down. We're easily frazzled. We just don't deal with very simple, normal problems. So we need to put a plan in place, especially when times are good, before we get to situations like we're in now, so that we can make ourselves more resilient, ultimately make our businesses and our whole lives more resilient. Now, how do you define resilience? So resilience is defined as a person's capacity to respond to the pressure and demands of daily life. Now, clearly those pressures and demands are very escalated at the moment. But the key thing here to understand is that capacity is something you have the ability to develop. It's not something you're born with. It's not like an IQ. It's not some sort of God-given talent. Some people may have a naturally higher capacity than others, but we can all continue to develop that capacity. So we'll touch on that as we move forward. A little bit more about me. Now, thank you, Lynn, for your kind introduction. I share this photo. I'm in leadership development and coach and facilitator, as Lynn mentioned. But I like to share this photo with clients. One of my private passions is scuba diving. And I dive in all sorts of environments, from tropical to Arctic environments. This photo my wife had taken of me a few years back up in the high Arctic, not too far from the North Pole. Now, the water here is below freezing. It's minus 2 degrees below freezing. The only thing keeping it from freezing is the salt content. This is just glacial melt. So people often think I'm crazy. They often say, how could you possibly get comfortable or dive in such freezing temperatures? How do you manage? The reality of it all is, if you have the right equipment, if you have the right tools, you can stay comfortable in any environment. And resilience and leadership skills in general work exactly the same way. And those are the types of tools we try to provide people with. If you develop the right tools in yourself in good times, when the tough times come, you'll be able to take whatever challenges come your way. But it's important that you build the toolkit before you need it. A little bit about Crestcom. So we are a global leadership development organization. We specialize in developing managers into leaders. And we spend a lot of time differentiating between management and leadership, which I won't get into today. But there is a distinct differentiation there. We've been around for over 30 years, have a presence in over 60 countries. Our programs have impacted over 1 million participants, and we have over 25,000 clients around the globe. If anyone has any questions, of course, my contact info is here, and feel free to reach out. But this is what we'll be covering today. We're going to understand what the characteristics of a resilient leader are, and we're going to understand the difference between a growth and a fixed mindset. And a resilient leader will have a growth versus a fixed mindset. Now, typically when I run a webinar on resilience, I'd spend some time at the back end discussing how to create a strategy to build a resilient team and culture, but time won't allow for that today. But my contact info will be shared again at the end of the presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to offer some free advice and offer some free tips on how you can advance the stuff we talk about today to instill it across your teams and create a culture in your organizations as well. So what is resilience not? Resilience is not toughing it out. Resilience is not just grinning and bearing it. It's not working 16-hour days until you get through it. Resilience is being prepared and having a plan and really a program in your life that allows you to deal with things as they come. So resilience is a choice. And it's very empowering when you think of it in that context. It's up to you whether or not you want to be resilient. You can decide today that I'm going to be more resilient going forward. And you can put immediate steps in place to get on that journey. And we'll talk about what steps those might be. But I find that is something that can be very self-motivating once you really make that distinction, that you can deal with the challenges that come your way much more effectively and deal with anxiety much more effectively if you make the choice today that you want to be and are going to be more resilient going forward. So here's a quote from Marilyn Blair, who is a behavioral psychologist we work with at Crestcom. As the world around us moves, grows, and changes with increasing rapidity, the need for resilient leaders increases as well. Now, this is as true as it's ever been, right? The challenges we're facing right now, between advances in technology and globalization, which have led us to our current modern world, the challenges we're facing, the global pandemic and what's in front of us, the need for resiliency is only going to increase. The need for leadership skills is only going to increase. The need for technical skills is typically quite fixed. The technical skills you need from your organization and from your leadership are pretty finite for the most part, barring any business pivots, etc. But the leadership skills and the soft skills and your resiliency actually increase in times of duress like this. And it's important to plan proactively before you get to this point so that your leadership has the right tools that they need to deal with these things as they come their way. So what are the benefits of resiliency? Sleep. We all need sleep. How many of us have lost sleep over work? I call that, sleep working off the clock. We don't want to do that. You need to declutter your mind. You need to be able to leave it behind and separate work and work life and private life. And that, of course, has become a much greater challenge at the moment. But we're all working from home. We're all sitting on Zoom calls all day. It's hard to draw a line between work and family life and private life take place. So it's important for you to create those borders for yourself. Increasing resiliency will actually increase your concentration and memory. When you declutter your mind through various measures, which we can discuss in a bit, you actually improve your cognitive abilities. And this is very much proven, but of course, these things take time. You don't get immediate wins, but once you understand and believe in the process, then you can get on the road to it as soon as possible. Benefits of resiliency are certainly relationships, not just work relationships and business and client relationships, but all of your relationships. We often bring the stress and problems of work home. It has an impact on family relationships, friendships. So the more resilient you are in general, the better you deal with stress and anxiety, the better that you will build your relationships across your entire life. You obviously will be able to cope better. If you're more resilient, you'll cope. Now, this one is double-edged. Resiliency will have a positive impact on your mental and physical health. But really, a key part of developing resiliency is working on your mental and physical health. So that is kind of a double-edged sword. So there's an important element of both that we'll discuss. Productivity. Certainly you can do more in less time if you're resilient. And we'll talk about that as well. The 16-hour burnout days need to go away. You'll become more innovative and creative. You can tap into the creative recesses of your minds. Those wells that are buried by clutter. When you declutter your mind and make yourself more resilient, you untap the creative mind. And of course, success comes with all of this. Once you've made yourself resilient, once you've made your organization resilient, then success will follow, both professionally and personally. So if that's what the benefits of resiliency are, then what are the traits of resilient leaders who are able to take advantage of these benefits? Firstly, they make self-care a priority. Don't just focus on the job at hand. Don't just focus on pure business. Focus on yourself. Some selfishness is required here. It's both mental and physical. Resilient leaders are thoughtful. They think about what they're doing, why they're doing it, and who it might impact, how it impacts their community, how it impacts their environment. They're empathetic. They're able to put themselves into other people's shoes to see things from the other side of the table. It's a very important element of resilient leadership. Now, self-awareness. Self-awareness is a very key piece and very important to me. To be perfectly honest, self-awareness training is one of the things that mostly inspired and motivated me to get into leadership development training, because I found some of that training so eye-opening and so powerful, and it just happens far too late for so many people in their careers and their personal lives. So to be self-aware, know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know your social communication style. And once you understand yourself better, you'll be able to understand your stakeholders much better, and you'll be able to understand what their expectations are of you. And you'll also understand why some relationships may not have been working well for you, because what you thought was a normal way to communicate or operate may have been a thorn in someone's side because they have a very different expectation than you do. So again, being able to see things from the other side of the table here is key. Resilient leaders are resourceful. They don't just throw their hands up and say, okay, a global pandemic came, my whole business plan is shot. I can't move forward. I'm going to have to give up. They'll figure out a new way forward. If your plan for March doesn't work anymore, you have to come up with a new plan. That's where, resourcefulness comes in. And that's where tapping into the creative mind comes in. And of course, they're action oriented. They execute. You can't just have a brilliant plan. You have to execute on it. And if you can't execute because execution is not part of your personal profile and you have the self-awareness to know that, then build a team that can effectively execute on the plan that you put together through your resiliency. And finally, resilient leaders know their why. They're purposeful. They do things for a reason and they know the reason they're doing it. And that's what helps motivate them to move forward. You have to start with why, as the famous inspirational writer Simon Sinek had written. It's a very important piece, and it's an excellent book. If you haven't read it, I would certainly recommend Start With Why by Simon Sinek. So we can't choose the game. We can't choose the rules. We can only choose how we play. And the theme I want to continue to impress upon everyone here is that choice and self-determination is what this is all about. Now, clearly, none of us are very happy with the game we've been given right now. We certainly don't like the rules, but it's up to us to choose how we play. the game has changed. We're not playing the same game we were in the beginning of March. So we need to reassess what the rules are now and learn how to play by them, because they're going to be different. It's going to require time, money, and energy, but it's the only way forward, and you need resiliency to move forward with that. And the starting line is the mindset. You have to have the right mindset, and that means you have a growth versus a fixed mindset. What do we mean by that? So those with a fixed mindset are not resilient. Those with a fixed mindset believe that talent is fixed. They believe that talent is set, that the people they have are as good as they're ever going to be. If they can't get it done, they need to either fire them and rehire, or they need to supplement with additional staff. The growth mindset believes that talent can be developed. They believe that there's upside, and that how people are performing today doesn't necessarily indicate the only way that they're capable of performing in the future. Those are the fixed mindset avoid challenges. They look for areas where they can manage smooth sailing, whereas the growth mindset embraces challenges. They like a good challenge, and they're willing to tackle it. Excites them. They like to roll up their sleeves and figure out how they can get through this. Those are the fixed mindset ignore criticism, either because they already think they're perfect, they don't understand their gaps, or they think there's nothing you can do about it anyway. It's just a bit of a self-defeatist mindset. But those with the growth mindset, they don't just learn from the feedback and criticism of others, they actually demand and embrace the feedback. And throughout my corporate career, I'd often be asked on different discussion panels, if I could give one piece of advice, to someone starting a career, what would it be? And typically the answer I would give is, demand feedback, embrace it, because most people will get ahead in their career to a certain point due to praise, because they've performed well, and that's why they've been promoted, and they get to a certain point, but they all ultimately reach a plateau. And when they reach that plateau, it becomes very difficult to all of a sudden be told what cracks are showing, because you've been told how perfect you were all along. Because from a leadership and management standpoint, it's much easier to tell people what they're doing well, because if they're doing stuff well, why bother telling them what they could do better? So it's incumbent upon you as early as possible to challenge your supervisors, to challenge your management, to challenge your clients, to understand, great, I'm doing really well with this, and I appreciate your kind words, your kind feedback. What could I be doing better? And you'll see that, the greatest athletes, I think of Kobe Bryant, I think of Alex Rodriguez, people who are at the top of their fields. If you look at their profiles, they were kind of known as pests throughout their leagues, because they were constantly questioning all the greatest people who come before them, or the greatest people who are competing with them, to pick their brains to figure out how they could do better and how they could do things differently, and taking feedback. And that's why they were the greatest at what they were great at, is because they embraced feedback and they demanded it. Now, the fixed mindset gives up easily. They'd say, okay, a great pandemic has come, the economy has come to a screeching halt, my business doesn't work anymore. They throw their hands up and they say there's no way forward. The growth mindset perseveres. They use their resourcefulness to figure out a new way forward, to figure out a way to potentially pivot their model in the new reality, figure out a way to buy time until the economy gets back on its feet. But perseverance is a key element of the growth mindset for resilient leadership. And then finally, a fixed mindset blames others. When something goes wrong, there's a lack of self-accountability. They're quick to say that's because my team didn't support me, it's because the government didn't support me, it's because the regulations got in my way. A growth mindset takes responsibility. Even when there's always various elements of ownership across any problem, but ultimately a resilient leader is going to take ownership and be accountable for what's going on, and figure a way out to move forward. So how do we build this, or how do we develop it further if we already have a workable growth mindset? So there's 5 things I'm going to take you through. The first is embrace who you are. Appreciate who you are today. Understand your starting point. Second is let go of perfectionism. If you're overly analytical and you're overly focused on getting things 100% accurate every time, it can be very stifling and counterproductive. 3, redefine success. What success looked like in March for us is obviously very different than what it looks like today. So you need to recalibrate accordingly. 4th, set clear goals, achievable goals, and we'll talk about how to do that. And finally, take action, execute. So let's look at the first one, embrace who you are. So what are the challenges to doing this? Why do people have headwinds when they're trying to embrace who they currently are? It starts with lack of self-confidence often, and it may be something you're unaware of, but you just may not have the presence of mind to address it, but you probably are lacking some confidence in your abilities in certain things. Certainly now, people have to get good at things they haven't been good at before, and they may not be confident that they're able to. too much comparison, comparing yourself to others, comparing yourself to, in the world of social media, this has gotten much worse. It's exacerbated to an exponential degree. Everybody's lives look shiny and perfect on social media, which is really just an illusion, but it also becomes a problem for everyone else's confidence because everyone just assumes everyone else is doing better than them. Everyone else is living the life. Even in this current environment, people's lives tend to look quite shiny and bright on social media. Self-awareness, again, I can't impress this enough upon everyone. You need to start to understand your own strengths and weaknesses, your personality profile, what you're good at, what you're not good at, and purpose. People sometimes lack a true purpose. They may be, maybe they're in the wrong job, maybe they're in the wrong career path, maybe they're doing something that doesn't align with their personal values. So here's some tips to overcome this. Firstly, we talked a lot about self-care and the mental element of self-care. Practicing mindfulness, and I use the term mindfulness as a catch-all. That can be transcendental meditation. It can be using mindfulness apps like Calm or Headspace. It could be practicing yoga, whatever works for you personally. But it's important you find something to center yourself and to declutter your mind on a daily basis. And this is something that takes regular practice to see results. So it takes patience and just faith that it will work, but it will yield results. The 16-hour burnout days, will get you to a certain place and it will produce a lot in a short period of time. But ultimately, if you're looking long-term, you will burn out and you won't get where you need to. Build on your strengths. Coming back to the self-awareness, once you understand what your strengths are, you're a strong communicator, maybe you're not very analytical, whatever it may be. Maybe you're great at executing, but you're not great at planning. Maybe you're great at planning, you're not great at executing. Understand what your strengths are and leverage them. And don't get yourself down on focusing on your weaknesses. Look to hire the right people, build the right team, the right think tank, and collaborate. Let others compensate for your weaknesses. And we all need to focus on our weaknesses to some extent in our personal and professional lives. Really, those who succeed and get to the highest. No, did I correct? Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, I froze for a second there. Those who get to the highest levels of their field, are working on their strengths. You can get others to compensate for your weaknesses. Speak positive. Language matters. And this also comes down to self-dialogue. How you talk in your own head is extremely important. And that can, it can take some work to change that habit, but really the right words matter. Think in deliberative terms. Say I will do things, not that I should or I could do things. Identify your value. What is it that you personally can contribute? What is your personal value proposition? Understand that. Write it down so you can pick it apart and really understand more about what you personally can contribute to an organization or to your community. And then separate to understanding your value proposition, understand the values that matter to you. Is it family? Is it loyalty? Is it fun? Is it friendship? Is it making money? Is it your career? Oftentimes we feel that we're supposed to be getting ahead in our career. We're kind of trained to feel that we have to get on, the corporate ladder and climb as high as we can. But really take a step back, understand what you really need in life and see what you value. And maybe that is what you value, and that's great, but not everybody needs to be a CEO. If family is your top value and you're working 16-hour days, you're probably missing out on a lot of family time. And maybe you need to reconsider the career choice. Maybe you should be doing something different with your life because you won't be fully satisfied and you won't be fulfilled if you're losing your family for the sake of a career. And focus on win-win. I mean, negotiation, I always say, negotiation hasn't been successful. Both people don't walk away from the table feeling that they lost something. You have to, it shouldn't just be black and white. It shouldn't be a binary answer. You shouldn't feel that what others are trying to achieve is combative or competitive with what you're trying to achieve. Find a way to collaborate, find a way to allow others' success to complement your own success. And finally, stop seeking approval from others. Those who are the most resilient and really have taken the master's class and Zen Buddha's method of resiliency will derive their confidence from inside, inside themselves. Don't look for external validation because you'll constantly be disappointed. You're never going to please everybody. If you find a way to satisfy yourself, then it doesn't matter what comes your way because you have the confidence to know that you can get it done. It doesn't matter what others are saying. And you'll see people who've been through all sorts of challenges in life, people who've been through horrible wars, horrible accidents, and lost limbs, whatever it might be. Some of them have the greatest attitude in the world, whereas other people, have been through far less to deal with it horribly, and it derails them from life. And that all comes down to resiliency. It's the internal confidence that you derive from inside that is going to get you through it. So the second item, let go of perfection. The challenge is here. Mistakes and failures hurt. We're all afraid to make mistakes, and we certainly need to handle risk management carefully to make sure we don't have any catastrophic errors. But mistakes are okay. In fact, they're necessary. It's the only thing you're going to learn from, and some experimentation is going to be required. If we look at a vaccine for COVID, some mistakes are going to be necessary to get one, right? We need to be willing to make those mistakes. We need to go through different trials. You need to embrace mistakes and failures in order to move forward, and don't let them overwhelm you. Don't let them stifle you from moving forward. Again, comparison. When it comes to perfection, we look at how someone else is doing something, and we set the benchmark based on what the person next to us is achieving or what someone on social media is achieving. Compare things to yourself and what your own plan and what your own goals are. That's really the only thing that you should be comparing to. You need to derive a proper plan for where you want to get to and what you think your capabilities are, but then stick to that plan and just compare yourself to how you're tracking versus your own plan. And don't get distracted by how others are doing, because it'll just be counterproductive and it does not lend itself to resiliency. Now, old rules and limiting beliefs. This could never have been a bigger headwind than it is right now. We're all stuck in March 2020, and it's hard for us to understand the new rules and new beliefs. So we need to get past that. We need to get past that final stage of grief and just realize this is where we are, and we have to tackle it accordingly. And of course, the fixed mindset. Those are the fixed mindset are going to be stifled incredibly by perfection. So tips for overcoming this: find lessons in every mistake. It's fine to make mistakes. Just try not to make the same mistake twice. Reflect on the mistakes, document them where necessary. Do postmortems and understand why it happened, and put procedures in place to make sure they don't happen again. The grab and go bag on our desk is an example of that. That was a lesson. Let's have emergency equipment for all of our employees, because now we know what might happen. And a lot of people say, "Oh, that'll never happen," but guess what? It did. Remove yourself from the rat race. Don't compete. Compete with yourself. Make yourself your biggest competitor. As soon as you make yourself your biggest competitor, the whole world opens up to you, and it clears the path for your own success. Embrace the gray areas. Don't worry about ticking every tie, crossing every T, dotting every I. Be willing to make decisions with 50% or sometimes less of the information. Break projects into smaller tasks, so you give yourself small wins. Tackle the low-hanging fruit. You have the long-term targets and the larger projects, but it's important to have some shorter-term milestones so you can track success and be motivated by the progress. And ultimately, love your strengths. Once you have the self-awareness, you know what your strengths are, embrace them and use them to the utmost that you can. Now, the third item, redefine success. Now, again, this stuff is all quite topical at the moment, isn't it? We need to redefine what success looks like. The challenges here are that win-lose mentality. We think that you're either winning or you're losing. We don't embrace that gray area. We all take a short-term view. And unfortunately, our society dictates that. Corporate life is driven by quarterly fiscal profits. Political life is driven by, semi-annual elections or elections every 4 years. So our targets are always driven by short-term milestones, unfortunately. But we really need to think sustainably for the long term, for our own, what does our life look like 30 years from now, not what does it look like in 3 months or 1 year. And purpose. A lot of people are just lacking their own sense of purpose. They haven't found their why. So it's important to understand what makes you tick. So here's some tips to overcome these challenges. Identify levels of success. And I mentioned this with projects. Break projects into smaller components so you have some short-term milestones. If we were to use the marathon runner as an example for comparison, a marathon runner might want to train 10 miles every day to run the marathon. They may not always be up to it, may not always have the time for it. Have a low-end target, mid-range target, and a long-end target. So maybe your minimum that you expect of yourself any given day, if you're running twice a day, let's say, is 3 miles. Maybe the next is 6 miles and the final is 10 miles. That way you give yourself room for patting yourself on the back for success because you've met your minimum. even though you may not always reach your 10-mile goal. You still have a short-term goal that you've reached. So it's important to identify levels of success, and this can apply to any walk of life and certainly any business. You know, you'll have your target, and it's important to keep your eye on that, but you can come up with lower range targets so you can maintain morale for your team, morale for your business, and a sense of success, which has a psychological impact which builds resiliency. Own your attitude. You know, take ownership of how you show up every day. You know, how you wake up and get out of bed every day is up to you. Again, this all comes down to self-determination and choice. And believe in the comeback. As I said, after 9/11, you know, a lot of people didn't believe in the comeback. A lot of people didn't know what was going to happen. The sky was falling. Maybe, you know, maybe this is the end of our economy. Maybe we'll be having, bombings every day. We got back to normal. You know, for better or for worse, we got back to normal. We will again now. We have to believe in it. Optimism is critical. Play the long game. Again, you know, have the short-term milestones for your own morale, but also understand where you're heading over the long haul. Get past all the financial deliverables with earnings reports and with financial compensations, and just make sure that every day you're progressing towards your long-term goal. Even though there may be setbacks here and there, financially and otherwise, understand where you're heading and just be happy that you're making progress to that end. Watch your language. Again, words matter and self-dialogue matters. Things may not have happened, but if you add the word yet to the end of it, it becomes very empowering. You know, certainly may not have gotten to where you want to, but you haven't gotten there yet. You know, there's no in business. There's only not now. So, you know, it's important to add that word yet when you're self-doubting and when you're thinking that, you know, all else has failed. Just think about adding the word yet to the end of your self-doubts, and you'll find that it often gives you a new motivation to move forward. Now, fourthly, set clear goals. You know, a lot of businesses are great at setting objectives, but they have a framework to set the objectives, but what they miss is getting those objectives right. You know, the first challenge is too many objectives. You know, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. You need to really narrow down what you want to achieve, or you want to achieve anything. It's critical as a starting point. Again, language. Stop with the shoulds. Don't say we should do this or you should do that. Say I will do this, or this must be done, this will be done, it'll be done by this date. And one of the challenges is people don't check in. They don't reflect. They don't have enough self-dialogue or reflection on what they've done or how it's gone. So again, how to tackle these challenges. Prioritize on 1 to 3 goals. You know, don't come up with 10 objectives for yourself or for your organization. Focus on 1 to 3 manageable goals. And we often talk in terms of SMART objectives. Make sure that all these goals are considered in a smart way. And by smart, I mean that they're specific, that they're measurable. You've got identifiable key process indicators or key risk indicators. Make sure that they're achievable or attainable. That's the A in SMART. Identify milestones that you realistically can reach, short, medium, and long term. Make sure it's relevant to what your business is doing, what they're trying to achieve, and relevant to what you're trying to achieve, and it meets with your why. And finally, make sure it's time-bound. Set time constraints. Make sure that you have realistic timelines and end dates on all of these objectives. And finally, the fifth item that you need to do in order to develop the growth mindset as a resilient leader is to take action, to execute. And again, lack of confidence is a problem here. You know, sure, I've come up with a great plan, but I'm not sure I can actually do this. You may be facing self-doubt from past failures, and they may not even be your own past failures. Maybe you're worried because you've seen the failures of your predecessors or your peers or your competitors. Again, declutter, take all of that out of it. Focus on your own self-confidence and what you know you can do, and start from a clean slate. Don't worry about what's happened in the past. Don't worry what's happened on the sidelines. Worry about what your capabilities are and what the problem at hand is. Indecisiveness, you know, lack of ability to make a decision. And that again is a challenge of perfectionism, you know, not embracing the gray area. And fear, of course, we all have fear. And we need to make fear our best friend. So how do we overcome this? You know, transform those fears. You know, stress is a funny word because we often think of stress in negative terms. But really, the term stress means nothing if you don't put the word positive or negative in front of it. You need an equal amount of positive and negative stress in order to be properly motivated, in order for all of your staff and teams at your organizations to be properly motivated. So everyone has a different fear factor. Everyone has a different level of motivation. I love diving with sharks and crocodiles, and my wife does the same, but a lot of people would think we're crazy. That motivates us, but some people, that's the last thing they want to do. And I can tell you, my wife has done this professionally for a number of years, but when I first got her into diving years back, she didn't want anything to do with it. She had a terrible fear of sharks, and she faced her fears head on, and with pride, she's gone on to not just do it, but she's does it professionally now. So it's you need to tackle those fears head on for sure. You need to answer, what's the worst that can happen? Be an optimist. Really think about what is really the worst that can happen, because there's always a reason why we can't do something. If we want to find a reason why we can't move forward, we will always, without fail, find a reason why we shouldn't or won't move forward, because there's always risks. You need to be cognizant of those risks. You need to properly manage those risks, but you need to understand your worst case scenario and believe see if you're willing to live with that. So replace fear with possibility. Sure, I'm afraid. We're all afraid. Fear is what inspires and motivates and moves us forward. It's a good thing. But what are the possibilities in front of me? If I tackle this fear, what does the other end of this look like? The current situation isn't great for a lot of us, but what are the possibilities ahead of us? And the only way we're going to find out how to get to that place is to overcome our fears and ask for help. Once you know your strengths and your weaknesses, pull in people who have complementary strengths, leverage those strengths. Again, if you've got a brilliant plan that your growth mindset has developed, but you really know from pure true self-awareness and not just self-doubt and fear that you're not the best guy to execute on it, hire a team who can, and focus on the recruitment required to do that. And finally, energy flows where passion goes. Now, I love to quote Mark Twain, who said, if you do something you love for a living, you'll never have to work a day in your life. So find what you're passionate about, either within your current job remit, or if it's not working, then reassess. But figure out what you actually love to do, and you'll do it for free. Now, most of us are blessed to do our hobbies for free. And, we all have to, there's also some element of work to it for sure. But within whatever construct we're operating, there is a way to find what we're more passionate about. And it takes some, brainstorming, and it takes some focus, but figure out what really makes you tick. And it may come down to some load rebalancing across, fellow team members, and maybe understanding your different stress levels or fear factors may make the team realize that somebody else is better at doing this than me, and I'm probably better at doing what they're doing. And you can shift load rebalancing accordingly. So we talked about the definition of resilience earlier, about your capacity to take what comes your way. But really, the evolving definition of resilience is advancing despite adversity. And I think that resounds as much today as it ever has. It certainly resounded back in 2001. Now, I'm big on symbols. I think symbols can be very powerful. They're good at inspiring, they're good at motivating. And, when we talk about 9/11, we don't talk enough about maybe One World Trade Center, the so-called Freedom Tower. Everyone has an opinion on it. Some may not like the shape it took, or the footprint that it took, or how long it took, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, it really does stand as a sort of pillar of resilience, doesn't it? We were knocked down and we came back taller. So I like to think of that as a symbol of the resilience of us that got us through a very difficult period 19 years ago. And I'm confident will get us through a very difficult period right now. We'll need to weather the storm. It may get worse before it gets better at times, but if you put a resilient plan in place to develop yourself now, you'll be able to deal with what comes your way. Because the struggle you're in today is developing the strength you need for tomorrow. And, many are facing, significant struggles today, but turn those struggles into your strengths, because, whatever doesn't kill you really does make you stronger. So take that as a form of self-motivation for you as well, to help build a growth mindset in yourself. Now, what I do offer is free, in this environment. I've covered it at the breakfast before. We have a Crest Common Care program. I'm offering a lot of free value. So if anyone does want to practice a habit or learn a new skill, I do offer free workshops to help, take a skill and figure out what your biggest challenges are for your team, and figure out a way to tackle that challenge and give you real tools that can help you do that. You can also feel free to follow our podcast. We have some excellent content interviewing thought leaders across a whole number of disciplines, including resilience and many others. And that is all I have for today. My contact info is here. If anyone would like to contact me, I'll take any questions if there are any, Lynn.
Well, we're going to open it up for questions now, but I do have just a couple of points, John. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much. That was really, you covered a lot of ground. And what we spoke a little bit about this prior to the prior to opening this up on Facebook, was the giving people permission to accept themselves. But one of the things that you had said also, which I find to be so needed, not just in this component, but in all components of our life, is embracing the gray. You know, we can look at it from a political point of view, business, interpersonal relationships, that it's okay, like you said, to give ourselves permission to proceed when we don't have all of the answers, to be able to change our opinions based on new facts, to just be able to get out of that black versus white, yes, no, those very defined boxes, and proceed in that. My question to you is, that requires a little bit of risk. To be able to do that and to move forward into the unknown. So if you could just speak very briefly, and I know you covered it but a little bit, but you know, one of the things in our society is we are, for the most part, very risk adverse. I will never dive with sharks. Not going to happen. Grew up on Long Island when they were filming Jaws. Ain't going to happen. Not going there. And there are things, I mean, I'll jump out of a plane, but I will not swim with sharks. But so my risk is over here, whereas over here I'll proceed. But how do we start becoming less risk adverse? You know, what are some steps, some actual tactical steps that we can do to become less risk adverse, especially in this environment?
Sure. I mean, firstly, I'd like to preface that a big component. It's an excellent question, and thank you for asking it. One big thing that comes up is gender diversity in that space. There's been a lot of studies that show recently, certainly in the boardroom in corporate life, that they say the average man is willing to speak with confidence when he is confident of 80% of the information. And I don't know how they calculate these numbers, so I'm only quoting what I've been told, but they say that men can speak with confidence when they know 80% of the information. I'm sorry, when they know 20% of the information, whereas a woman, like for like, would only feel comfortable speaking with confidence when she has 80% of the information. And you can imagine the headwinds that creates for women's advancement, but you can also understand that the lack of advancement over the generations has put them in that place. So it's not, I don't think it's genetic. I think it's, it's circumstantial and environment. Now, in terms of your question, how do you develop it? You know, self-confidence is the key. And, you know, people can be overconfident, and that can be a problem. We can't dismiss that. But, you know, to build self-confidence is to build a growth mindset. So the steps that I described all lend themselves to building confidence. Certainly practicing self-care, some form of meditative or mindfulness practice declutters the mind, which enables you to see more clearly what's ahead of you, so you don't become as easily overwhelmed by the potential what ifs. So certainly that is a key component of it, but really everything I discussed in terms of those five-pronged approach, tackling a growth mindset, will build self-confidence and allow you to source your motivation from inside instead of around you. And once you do that, then you don't overwhelm yourself quite as easily by the what ifs that surround you every day.
Wonderful. Another question, and you sort of broached it a little bit, was overconfidence. Is it important for us to have a network of individuals that we trust that can act as a sounding board, so they can say, you know, yes, no, move forward, move that? Is that important in this process also, to have a network of trusted advisors?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this goes back to Napoleon Hill and the Carnegie method of think tanks, right? If you look at Ray Dalio, who's the retired CEO of Bridgewater, the world's largest money manager, he takes this to heart. He takes mindfulness and transcendental meditation very seriously, but that's how he operates. He knows his weaknesses. It comes down to self-awareness. Know what you're good at, leverage what you're good at, and hire a team that complements what you're not good at. And don't be afraid to take criticism, accept it, challenge it when you feel it really needs to be challenged, but certainly embrace it, accept it, and work on it where it's legitimate. And ask for help from others. Don't feel that don't be over reliant on yourself, because you can't do everything. You're not supposed to be good at everything. None of us are supposed to be great at everything.
Really?
No, no.
I thought we were all supposed to be perfect.
No.
I thought we were all supposed to be able to proceed in any box, any section of our lives, and to excel at it.
I was told that once too. We must have been speaking to the same person. No, but
Well, you would think. I mean, you mentioned this. We live in a world of social media, and our the world of social media. It's great because we're using it now to be able to communicate, but it is a very shallow echo chamber. And to govern our lives on Facebook likes is not, I don't think, the kind of feedback that you're speaking about.
exactly. I mean, that stuff has become more counterproductive to all of this. Social media has created a number of challenges for us individually, but also as a society. The false kind of illusion of what good looks like, false illusion of how everyone else is doing. I mean, even before social media, it started with all these reality TV shows or watching everybody's, celebrity homes, and it just became about what everyone else has, and not about, and we were motivated by jealousy of others, which is really counterproductive.
Mhm.
We shouldn't be worried about what other people have. We should define what we want based on our own values. And that's why it's important to start by assessing your values. There's an exercise you can run through. There's a deck of cards similar to a deck of playing cards that has, each card has a value on it, whether it be fun, loyalty, family, money, health, safety, security, what have you. But, challenge yourself to go through a list like that and narrow them down to 10, and then narrow them down to 5, and then narrow them down to 3. And it's a tough challenge when you start competing, friends versus family, health versus, loyalty, trust versus, relationships, whatever it might be. Get those top 3 values. Once you really investigate your own core to understand those 3 values, then you need to figure out a roadmap for how you're going to get your way through life to address those values. And that has nothing to do with what everybody else around you has on social media or on television.
That's invaluable information, and it all gets back to giving ourselves permission to be human, is what it sounds like to me. That we don't have to be perfect. We have to be human, but we have to constantly look to be better humans than we were yesterday. So, John, I don't have any other questions. If we have on the screen your contact information. I would really urge all of you as members of the Orange County Chamber of Commerce, and for those of you who are watching who are not, to really take advantage of the lessons that and some of the tips that John has shared with us. We are in a period of unknown. And, John, you went through 9/11, and I cannot even imagine. I was, safe up in Orange County when that happened. I can't even imagine the terror that happened that day. But your leadership provided you with tools to be able to withstand that as much as possible. So as you said, that is something to be grateful for. And here, John is offering us tools to be able to withstand and to help our teams survive the coming unknown and the unknowns that we are in. So John, I want to thank you so much for being our guest speaker today. I look forward to working with you. I know that we'll be taking advantage with our team with your workshops next month, and I'm looking forward to that. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today. And I want to thank you for your membership in the Orange County Chamber of Commerce. Urge you to, check us out. If you're not a member, speak to Heather Bell. Please make sure that you read our emails. We send them out 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We have a lot of Meet the Members. We have a lot of programs that we offer because we want you to be successful. We want you to be purposeful. We want you to be resilient. So John, on behalf of the board and our membership, thank you for joining us today. And I hope that everybody has a good day and a good week.
Thank you for having me. Same here.
Thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.